Welcome in, everybody, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
This time, we're setting our sights on Sagrantino.
Sagrantino.
It's an Italian grape. But, you know,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have heard of it, but I don't know that most people have really had the chance to dig in. And I feel like it has a history as fascinating as its flavor profile.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
So for today's deep dive, we have...
Buckle up.
Yeah, we have a book, and the book is called...
This is a fun one.
Sagrantino.
Yes.
But get this.
It is entirely in Portuguese.
It's entirely in Portuguese.
Yes. So consider us your translators.
Yeah, we're going to be sifting through this book in Portuguese.
Yes.
Extracting the juiciest details about Sagrantino so you can walk away feeling like a true aficionado.
Yeah, I think you'll find that the language barrier kind of only adds to the mystique surrounding this grape.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
And so right off the bat, the book describes Sagrantino as having a strong personality.
Oh, I like it already.
I know, right?
I know. I'm in.
And claims its wines can challenge time. What does that even mean for a wine to challenge time?
Well, it's a nod to Sagrantino's exceptional aging potential.
Okay.
Which stems from, like, I mean, we'll get into all of the kind of, I don't know, science-y things about it later, but there are a few key factors that really give this wine the ability to really age gracefully. So, yeah.
All right, so we have a wine that's got a strong personality. It can challenge time.
Yes.
Let's unravel the mystery of its origins.
Let's do it. So, shrouded in speculation.
Yeah. The book mentions that Sagrantino's origins are shrouded in speculation.
Yes.
With one theory suggesting...
Oh, I love this one.
Franciscan monks brought the grape from the Holy Land back in the 13th century.
This is my favorite origin story because, I mean, can you imagine monks, trekking across, continents with these precious vines? Like, it's kind of cool to think that they would, potentially be responsible for shaping the, landscape of Italian winemaking like that. It's pretty wild.
Totally. So we've got monks traveling from the Holy Land bringing this grape.
Possibly, yeah.
It could challenge time. It's got a big personality. What else?
Well, we almost lost it.
Oh, yeah.
In the 19th century. It almost disappeared completely.
We might not even be having this conversation.
No. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like, we might never have known the magnificence that is Sagrantino if it weren't for some very dedicated folks who revived it in the 20th century, like really brought it back from the brink. It's pretty cool. So, yeah.
So this is a grape. It's resilient. It's got gumption.
Yeah. This grape's got gumption. I like that. I've never called a grape that, but I'm going to start.
Let's move on to the region that gives Sagrantino its character.
Yes. Let's go to Italy.
Umbria.
Umbria.
The book calls it the land of saints.
It is.
With its mountainous landscapes and medieval villages.
It's a gorgeous place.
Yep.
Yeah. So you've been? I have been. Yeah. I mean, it's like stepping back in time, honestly. It's just so beautiful and peaceful.
Okay. So I'm getting wanderlust just listening to you talk about it. But
all right.
It's all good. The book specifically points us towards Montefalco.
Ah, Montefalco. Yeah.
The birthplace of Sagrantino.
Be considered the birthplace.
Yeah.
Consider the birthplace.
Kind of like their crown jewel,
Okay, so why this specific location? Like, how does this specific location contribute to the character of Sagrantino?
This is where terroir comes in, right?
Okay.
So Montefalco, it's got a really interesting climate, right? Hot, dry summers, pretty chilly winters.
Okay.
And that creates these like really ideal conditions for Sagrantino's long growing cycle. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But it's the soil.
Okay.
That I think is super fascinating.
So we're going beyond climate now.
Yeah. So clay and limestone.
Which, those of you who kind of follow along on these journeys with us know that those are two of my favorite things to see in a soil for a wine.
Yeah, those come up a lot. So what is it about the clay and limestone?
It really shapes the, I don't know, personality of the grape. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't know if personality is the right word, but it's...
No, I think it's fine. We've already decided it's got a strong personality.
That's right. This is a grape with gumption and personality, but it really does. It adds a distinct kind of, I don't know, layer to those flavors.
Okay. So it's not just the climate. It's also the soil that's adding to all of this.
Yes. Think of it as like the foundation upon which Sagrantino builds its complexity.
Okay. So foundation, complex. Now, for all the wine geeks out there, let's get into the...
Let's get nerdy.
Yeah, let's get,
Let's geek out.
Geeky, nerdy whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Abundant tannins.
Abundant tannins.
Okay, explain.
All right, so tannins, right. Those are the compounds in wine that give you that like drying sensation on your palate, almost like when you sip on black tea. And those come from the grape skins and seeds primarily.
Okay.
And Sagrantino.
Yes.
Thick skin.
Right.
Like a lot of it. So abundant tannins. They really do.
All right, so how does that actually translate to what we're tasting in the glass?
So we're talking about wines that have a very powerful structure.
Okay.
The book actually uses the word velvety to describe the texture, and it's pretty spot on, actually. They really do have this kind of like silky but powerful structured feel to them.
So it's not just about like that tannin like boldness.
No.
There's a textural element as well.
Yes, very much so.
Okay. All right, so we've got those tannins, but as you said before, power needs balance.
Needs balance, exactly.
What else?
Well, Sagrantino also has very high acidity, so that's a naturally occurring component in grapes and in wine. And high acidity, it really does add like a refreshing quality. Think like a squeeze of lemon, right? It kind of like brightens things up.
Okay.
But it also, and this is important for all you agers out there, it contributes to its longevity. So, acidity along with tannins are really what allow a wine to age gracefully.
Like, what's a good analogy? Like a fine sculpture that becomes more intriguing.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
For time.
Like a fine sculpture, a vintage car.
Okay, so it's a wine that needs time to kind of show its true self.
It benefits from time. Yeah, exactly.
Now that we kind of have a structure, let's talk about the aromas. I've heard Sagrantino is very complex aromatically.
Oh, he's got a beautiful nose. Yeah.
So what are we smelling here? What does the book tell us?
The book actually uses the phrase remarkable aromatic complexity.
Okay.
And I have to agree. So imagine this. A symphony of dark fruits. We're talking like blackberries, blueberries, all those like deep, rich, dark fruits. But then there are also these spice notes like black pepper, clove, think like warming spices.
Okay. So far, so good. It's giving like winter holiday.
Yeah, kind of. Right.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't stop there because then you start getting hints of things like chocolate, tobacco, even leather.
Wait a minute. Leather.
Leather, yeah.
I mean, I can see where we're getting the spices and I can see where we're getting the dark fruit. Where's the leather coming from?
It's wild, right? So those are what we call tertiary aromas.
Okay.
And those typically develop as a wine ages.
Okay, so we might not be getting all of this right out of the gate.
No, you're not going to get leather right away, typically. Sometimes you'll get like a little waft of like tobacco, I find, in younger ones. But those tertiary aromas really come out with, a decade or two in the bottle.
Wow. Okay. All right. So we've got this incredible complexity.
Yes.
Is that common for a high tannin wine to be that complex aromatically?
It's definitely more pronounced in certain varieties, and I would say Sagrantino is one of them. Like the intensity and concentration of those flavors is directly related to that thick skin we were talking about, and just the abundance of phenolic compounds, which is like all that nerdy stuff, but that's what gives it all those aromas.
Okay. So then as this wine ages, do those aromas change? Like what kind of evolution are we talking about?
It's really cool. It's like, so those youthful like black fruits, they kind of evolve into like dried plums, figs, they get a little bit more like dried and I don't know, like deeper. Yeah. And the spice notes deepen as well. And then you start to uncover those tertiary aromas, which we talked about, like the earthy notes, the truffles, the forest floor, all that stuff really kind of comes out more with time.
Okay. So this is a wine that's got a story to tell.
Absolutely.
And that story unfolds over time.
It unfolds over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm adding Sagrantino to my list of must-tries, but I know it comes in different styles.
Okay,
so
that does.
Can we delve into that? What does the book say?
So the book focuses on three main expressions. Montefalco Sagrantino DOCG.
Okay.
Montefalco Sagrantino Pasito DOCG.
Ooh.
And Montefalco Rosso DOC.
All right. So that's a lot.
A lot of Montefalco.
A Montefalco.
Yes.
So let's start with that first one. That's a mouthful.
Right. Yeah, it's a long one.
What does DOCG even signify?
Okay. So DOCG stands for Denominazione di Origine controllata e garantita.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, it's a mouthful. But basically, it's the highest level of quality control and regional specificity for Italian wines.
Okay.
So think of it as like, a guarantee of authenticity, like this wine is really from this place.
Right. It's not,
Exactly.
it's not some knockoff.
Exactly. No knockoffs.
This is the real deal.
This is the real deal.
So what does Montefalco Sagrantino DOCG actually taste like? Because we know it's high quality, but like, what are we getting in the glass?
Okay, so imagine a powerful, dry red wine, right? So it's actually those impressive tannins that we discussed earlier, a lot of aging potential. Mm-hmm. The DOCG regulations actually require a minimum of 33 months of aging for these wines.
Wow. Okay.
With 12 of those months in oak barrels.
Okay, so this is a wine that demands some patience.
It does.
All right, what about that second one? The
Passito.
The Passito. I've heard that term before.
Yeah, so Passito basically refers to wines made from dried grapes.
Okay.
So Montefalco Sagrantino Passito DOCG is a rare sweet wine.
Oh.
Yeah. So not all Sagrantino is like big and bold and tannic. You can get these beautiful sweet wines, and they're crafted from dried Sagrantino grapes using this process called appassimento.
Appassimento. I have heard of that.
Yeah. So traditionally that means they're like laying grapes out on mats to dry, right? And so that concentrates the sugars and the flavors, and it creates this like really intense wine with like, aromas of like dried fruit, honey, spices. It's a really, really cool experience.
Okay, so we've got the big, powerful one. We've got the sweet,
yes,
the Passito.
Yes.
And then we have Montefalco Rosso DOC.
Yes. So that is actually a blend.
Okay.
Where Sagrantino plays a supporting role.
Okay.
So typically it's going to be 10 to 25% of the blend.
Okay.
And the dominant grape in Montefalco Rosso is actually Sangiovese.
Right. Which
a lot of people know from, Tuscany, Chianti. It's that like bright cherry, acidic kind of, quintessential Italian red grape.
Right. Okay. So, but Sagrantino's in there.
Sagrantino's in there. And this is what I love about Sagrantino, is it shows its versatility, right? It's not just this like big, bold, powerful thing. It can actually add structure and complexity to a blend without like completely taking over.
Right.
So that's what I think is really cool about Montefalco Rosso, is you're getting a taste of Sagrantino, but it's kind of like playing with a friend.
So we've got history, we've got terroir, we've got all these different styles. Sounds like this grape has it all.
It does, but
there are some challenges. So producing Sagrantino isn't all sunshine and roses.
Of course not.
It's not.
Yeah.
There are some hurdles, and the book actually gets into some of those.
Okay, what are we talking about?
So one of the big ones is that late ripening and long growing cycle.
Okay.
That we briefly touched on earlier.
Yeah.
So it's a little finicky.
Okay.
And, longer it hangs out on the vine.
Yeah.
More susceptible things like disease. It needs a lot of love and care. Okay. So it's a challenge for the grower.
Yeah, they have to know what they're doing.
They have to really know what they're doing. And it requires a lot of attention to detail in the vineyard.
Okay, so that's one. Is there anything else that makes Sagrantino a little bit?
Yeah, those tannins we were talking about.
Yeah.
So much as they contribute to the structure and the aging potential, they can also make young Sagrantino wines quite austere.
Okay.
They're demanding. They need time to soften and integrate. So it's back to that patience thing.
Back to the patience. This is not a grape, for those of you who are like, instant gratification, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a slow burn.
It's a slow burn. It's a grape with gumption.
A grape with gumption. That needs some time.
It needs its time.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got the tannins. We've got the long growing season.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
Well, this kind of, I guess, falls under the category of challenges, but also part of its allure is the limited production.
Right. Because we're really just talking about this small area.
Yeah. So Sagrantino
These are Montefalco.
Is mainly grown around Montefalco, and that means there's not a lot of it.
Yeah.
So limited supply.
Higher price.
Higher price. Yep. It's basic economics, right?
Okay. But it sounds like the rewards are extraordinary.
They really are. And the book really emphasizes like the remarkable aging potential of these wines. They can really evolve and transform over decades, which is quite cool. So thanks to that structure, that acidity, the concentration, those flavors, like they really, I don't know, I think of it as like a time capsule almost. You're tasting history. You're tasting a place, it's pretty amazing.
So it's not merely about tasting, it's about experiencing.
It's about the experience, yeah. It's about the journey.
That's beautifully said.
Yeah.
So if I were to sum up, I mean, we're talking about a grape.
This is a grape, Sagrantino.
That's bold.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Demanding.
Demanding, yes.
It needs its time.
What needs time?
But the payoff.
But it will reward you.
It will reward you.
It will.
So the question is.
Yes. I have a question.
Okay. I like where this is going.
What kind of experience are you looking for in a wine? Makes me wonder, considering all this, what sort of occasion calls for a bottle of Sagrantino?
That's a good point, yeah. It's not exactly a light and breezy patio sipper.
Not unless you're really patient.
Right.
But, yeah, the book mentions food pairings.
Which can either soften the tannins or kind of stand up to them.
Okay.
So it's about, thinking strategically about what you're eating alongside this one.
Okay, so give us some classics. What are we pairing this with?
Bold flavors, big flavors. So the book suggests things like grilled or roasted red meats.
Okay.
A perfectly cooked steak. Okay. Maybe some lamb chops with rosemary. Those sorts of dishes, they have enough richness to stand up to those tannins and really create a nice harmony.
That makes sense. So the richness kind of cuts the tannins, but then the acidity in the wine kind of cuts the fat.
Exactly. It's all about this interplay.
Yeah.
Right, of flavors and textures.
All right. So we're talking red meat. The book also mentioned game.
Game, yes.
Particularly wild boar.
Wild boar is a classic pairing for Sagrantino.
Wild boar. That's pretty adventurous.
It is, but it makes sense when you think about how intense the wine is. Wild boar has this, gamier, more robust flavor than pork.
Right.
It can hold its own against those powerful tannins.
All right. So we've got red meat. We've got wild boar.
We've got wild boar, and then there's always pasta.
Okay.
Pasta is a classic pairing for Italian wines in general.
Yeah.
And Sagrantino is no exception.
So we're thinking like those rich meat-based sauces.
Exactly. Those hearty, ragouts that kind of cling to the pasta and, give you that nice weight in your mouth. So think pappardelle with a wild boar ragout or maybe a hearty lasagna.
All right. I'm with you. Those pairings all sound great.
Yeah.
But the book also mentioned some more unconventional pairings.
Yes, there are a few surprises in there.
Yeah, like what?
Okay, so the book suggests things like mushrooms, truffles, and even dark chocolate.
Wait, dark chocolate?
Dark chocolate. High percentage of cacao.
Okay, now we're talking about really delicate flavors here.
We are.
Pairing that with, this bold wine.
I know it seems counterintuitive, but hear me out. So with mushrooms and truffles, think about it. They have that earthiness that kind of echoes those savory, earthy notes that you find in aged Sagrantino.
So it's matching complexity with complexity.
Exactly. And with the dark chocolate, the bitterness of the chocolate can actually play off the tannins in the wine.
Okay.
So you get this interesting contrast.
It's a push and pull.
It is a push and pull.
Yeah.
It's like a dance of flavors on your palate.
I love it. All this talk about food is making me so hungry, but
me too.
Let's
Okay, back to the wine.
Back to the wine. We keep talking about this aging potential.
Yes.
I want to know, what is actually happening, scientifically?
Science of aging.
As this wine.
So those tannins we keep talking about, they're not static.
Okay.
They change over time, and they undergo this process called polymerization.
Polymerization.
Yeah.
Okay, break that down for me.
So basically the tannins link up and they become larger molecules. So instead of having all these little aggressive tannins dancing around in the wine, you have fewer, larger, and smoother tannins.
That's why it gets softer.
That's why it gets softer. That's why people talk about aged wines as having this velvety texture.
Yes.
It's because those tannins have polymerized.
I get it. It all makes sense now.
Science.
So it's not just the tannins. The fruit changes too, right?
The fruit evolves as well. So those initial bright fruit aromas, like the blackberries and the plums, they start to kind of mellow out and they develop into more complex notes.
Like what?
Dried fruits, like figs and prunes.
Okay.
Think a little bit more, I don't know, deeper, richer.
Deeper, richer. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we've got those tertiary aromas that develop with aging.
Yes. The leather, the tobacco, the cedar, all those wonderful things that come with time.
Okay. So paint me a picture. I open a bottle of Sagrantino that's been aged for a while. What am I experiencing?
Okay, first, the color is going to be different. It's not going to be that bright ruby red anymore. It's going to be more of a garnet hue, kind of a sign of maturity. And then you swirl a glass and you take a sniff.
Yeah.
And instead of that big burst of fruit,
right,
you get this complex tapestry of aromas. You might have a little bit of lingering dark fruit.
Okay.
But now it's interwoven with those notes of dried figs, prunes, maybe a little candied cherry, and then the tertiary aromas really start to emerge. So you might catch a whiff of leather, tobacco, cedar, maybe even that touch of truffle or forest floor.
So we're talking a multi-sensory experience here.
Multi-sensory for sure. And then you take that first sip.
Yeah.
And the wine coats your palate.
Yes.
With its velvety texture. The tannins are soft, integrated. There's no harshness.
Right.
The fruit is still there,
okay,
but it's nuanced, it's complex, it's evolved.
It's a different wine.
It's a different wine.
But let's be real, not everyone has the patience to wait 10, 15 years for a bottle of wine.
No, instant gratification is a thing.
So if we're talking about drinking this younger,
yes,
any tips for taming those tannins?
Yes. So decanting is your friend.
Okay.
So exposing the wine to air for like an hour or two before you serve it can really help soften those tannins.
So give it some air.
Give it some air, let it breathe.
Let it open up.
And then also food pairing. Think back to those dishes we were talking about. The richness, the fat content, that all helps to balance out those tannins.
Okay, so those richer dishes are going to help.
Yeah.
Even if it's a younger wine.
Even if it's younger.
We can still enjoy it.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the personality of the wine.
Yeah.
And finding the right setting to let it shine.
Okay. This has been so insightful, and I'm getting really excited about the idea of experiencing this in its birthplace.
Yeah.
Earlier, you mentioned that the book highlights Montefalco as a prime destination for enoturism.
Yes. Montefalco is fantastic.
So for a wine lover, what makes this so special?
Well, it is the heart of Sagrantino production. So you can visit those vineyards where the grapes are grown, meet the winemakers, taste the wines right where they're made.
Oh, it sounds amazing. It sounds like a pilgrimage for Sagrantino lovers.
It is, but it's not just about the wine. Montefalco itself is this really charming medieval hilltop town.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful views.
Yeah.
Imagine yourself walking through those cobblestone streets.
Yes.
Glass of Sagrantino in hand.
Yeah.
Taking it all in.
Okay, so we've got the place. We've got the wine. I have to imagine the food is pretty good, too.
Oh, the food is fantastic. Umbrian cuisine is known for its simplicity, the fresh ingredients, and this kind of rustic charm. Think like hearty pasta dishes, grilled meats, flavorful cheeses, and of course, truffles.
Okay.
Umbria is famous for its truffles.
Now I'm getting really hungry.
So am I.
So, okay, we've got the food. What are some of the actual experiences? What can we do there?
So obviously, visiting wineries is a given.
Okay.
But the book also recommends things like walking or biking through the vineyards, maybe taking a cooking class, learn how to make some of that delicious Umbrian cuisine we were talking about.
Right.
And of course, there are wine festivals.
Ooh, wine festivals. I love a good wine festival. What kind of festivals are we talking about here?
So there's the Settimana del Sagrantino, which translates to Sagrantino Week.
Okay.
And it happens every September, and it is a full-on celebration of Sagrantino.
Well, what are we talking? Like tasting?
Tastings, winery tours, food pairings, music, all sorts of fun stuff.
A whole week dedicated to Sagrantino. That's amazing.
It is. The book also mentioned Cantina Aperte, which means open cellars.
Okay, what's that?
So it's this event that happens in a lot of Italian wine regions, including Montefalco, and usually in late May, early June.
Okay.
And wineries basically open their doors to the public.
Okay.
You can go in, do tastings, tours, meet the winemakers. It's really cool.
Like a behind-the-scenes peek.
It is. It's a really cool way to experience the region.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've got Sagrantino Week, we've got open cellars. Any other festivals?
One more. Vini nel Mondo, which means wines of the world.
Oh.
It's held in August.
Yeah.
And they showcase wines from all over Italy and even some international producers.
Wow, so Montefalco is like a year-round wine destination.
It is.
So beyond the festivals, I imagine there are tons of wineries
Oh, yeah.
to check out.
Tons. Each with its own kind of story and style.
Okay. The book highlights a few. Any that you want to touch on?
Yeah, well, there's Arnaldo Capre.
Oh.
They're like a pioneer in producing high-quality Sagrantino,
Oh, dear.
known for their really elegant and age-worthy wines. Antonelli San Marco, they're a family-run winery.
Okay.
Long tradition of making Sagrantino,
Yeah.
known for their very expressive and complex wines.
So we're hitting all those key points that we've already talked about.
We are. We're seeing those themes come out in the producers as well.
Okay. Anyone else? Perticaya?
They're really interesting. They have this focus on traditional methods.
Okay.
So very much respecting the terroir, the typicity of the grape. And Scacci Diavoli, they're a historic winery in Montefeltro, and they're known for those really structured, age-worthy wines that we've been talking about.
Okay.
And then lastly, Adanti, they're a family-owned winery that kind of combines like tradition with innovation. So it's a nice balance of like the old and the new.
So really, there's a Sagrantino out there.
There is.
For everyone.
There is. It's amazing, you know?
Yeah.
For one grape, so much diversity.
Totally.
And those are just a few examples. There are so many wineries to explore. And as we've been talking about all this, I've been thinking about something we haven't really touched upon.
Oh, wait for that.
We've explored the history, the characteristics, the food pairings, the tourism.
Right.
But we haven't really considered the cultural significance of Sagrantino.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about monks and ceremonies.
Right.
But beyond that, what does this mean for the people of Umbria?
That's the question, isn't it? In this book, it focuses on, you know, the technical side.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a deeper story waiting to be told.
So this is more than just a wine.
It's more than just a wine. I mean, think about it. It's been cultivated there for centuries.
Yeah.
It survived near extinction. It's now having this, like, resurgence.
It's a comeback kid.
It is. It's a comeback kid. And I think it speaks to, you know, the resilience of the land and the people. It's really interwoven into their history and their identity.
So those wines, with their power and their complexity,
yes,
they really mirror the character of Umbria, wouldn't you say?
I would say that.
This ruggedness,
yes,
but also this elegance,
yes,
and this history.
A deep sense of history.
So it's a reminder that wine is more than just a drink.
It's a reflection of culture. It's a storyteller. It connects us to the past, to each other.
I love that. It makes me want to go beyond just the technical aspects and really explore the human element of all of this. The stories that would be told if these wines could speak.
Oh, yeah.
Stories of families gathering around tables.
Yes.
Of celebrations.
Absolutely.
All centered around Sagrantino. I think we could spend another hour.
Oh, easily.
Just on that. But we've got to think about the future.
We do. Let's talk about the future.
What does the book say about the future of Sagrantino? I'm really curious to hear what the book predicts. Does Sagrantino have a bright future?
The book seems pretty optimistic. It predicts continued growth and popularity for Sagrantino.
Okay.
It seems like as more people discover its unique qualities, you know, that power, the complexity, that aging potential we talked about, demand's probably going to increase.
That makes sense. But we also talked about how Sagrantino production is pretty limited geographically, you know, mainly that area around Montefeltro.
Right.
So could that limited production become a problem as demand grows?
It's a good question, and the book actually addresses that. It talks about the possibility of expanding Sagrantino cultivation.
Okay.
So there's definitely room for growth within Umbria itself.
Okay.
But they even talk about potentially expanding beyond Umbria.
So we might see Sagrantino wines from other parts of Italy?
Possibly.
Or even other countries?
It's not out of the question. In fact, the book even mentions some experimental plantings of Sagrantino in places like Australia and California.
Wow.
So you've got these very different climates and soil types. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the influence of terroir.
Right.
Like, how would that...
Huge impact.
Yeah. How would that change the expression of the grape?
I mean, that's what makes wine so fascinating, right? It's that interplay between the grape variety, the place, and the people making the wine.
Totally. So it's a constant exploration.
It is.
There's always something new to learn.
Always.
Are there any other trends or predictions that the book highlights for the future of Sagrantino?
Well, one of the big things that the book emphasizes is the importance of sustainability.
Okay.
Which we're seeing across the wine industry.
Right.
Consumers are a lot more aware now about environmental issues.
Yeah.
And they're looking for wines that are produced in a responsible way.
Right. I mean, sustainability is a huge concern.
It is.
In every aspect of our lives these days.
Yeah.
So, I mean, does that mean we might be seeing more Sagrantino wines that are certified organic or biodynamic?
It's definitely a possibility, and even beyond certifications, a lot of producers are really taking it upon themselves to adopt sustainable practices
Okay.
in both the vineyard and the winery. Things like reducing water consumption,
Mm.
using renewable energy sources, promoting biodiversity.
Mm.
They're looking at the whole picture.
Right. So it's not just about the grapes. It's about,
It's about the whole ecosystem.
yeah, the entire process.
Exactly.
That's encouraging.
It is.
I mean, it sounds like Sagrantino producers are really on board
They are.
with this move towards sustainability.
Yeah, they recognize that it's important to preserve the environment for future generations, and they want to create wines that are not only delicious, but also reflect that responsibility.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing.
It is.
It's about that respect for the land and that commitment to quality.
Mm-hmm.
So after doing this deep dive into Sagrantino, I feel really optimistic about its future.
Me too. I think it's a grape with a rich history, a unique character, and definitely a bright future ahead of it.
It's a survivor.
It is.
It's adapted to changing times,
Yeah.
and it continues to just captivate people.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good reminder that wine is so much more than just a drink.
It is.
It's a reflection
Yeah.
of culture and history and passion and creativity.
It's a story in a bottle.
And we started this deep dive wanting to uncover that story of Sagrantino.
We did.
And I think what we found is that there are so many stories
Mm-hmm.
interwoven
Yeah.
into this one grape.
A lot of layers.
We've got history, we've got terroir, we've got the human element,
The passion.
the passion, all of it coming together
Yes.
to tell this beautiful, complex story.
I love that.
So to all our listeners out there, I really encourage you to find a bottle of Sagrantino and go on your own sensory journey.
Yes.
Explore the flavors, the aromas, the
Yeah.
history, and just see what you discover.
You might even find yourself planning a trip to Montefelco.
I know I am.
It's a special place.
So cheers to Sagrantino, a grape that challenges time, delights the senses, and continues to tell a story that's as rich and complex as the wines themselves.
Beautifully said. Cheers to Sagrantino.
Cheers, everybody.